So, here's the story. It's becoming too expensive to be alive. Seniors cope with soaring housing and food costs. Now, if you think things are bad here in America, just imagine how things are going to get over in Europe. I'm hearing that right now things are so bad in parts of Germany and parts of Europe that you're literally only able to have 1 hour of heat per day. And they're thinking that by February, they may be able to go up to 4 hours of heat per day. February, right as you're in like winter, because winter's coming. But right now, things are so bad. And they're not, now, I want you to notice, they're not talking about this on the news. Now, you heard them mention that this pipeline, the Nord Stream pipeline, had been quote unquote sabotaged. Then all of a sudden, you didn't hear nothing about it no more. I want you to notice they ain't talking about that on the news, are they? What are they talking? They're talking about Kanye West right now. They're busy talking about fucking Kanye West on these fake news channels, MSNBC, CNN, Fox. That's what they're busy talking about. They're not talking about the German people who are freezing their fucking asses off right now. They're not talking about the people in parts of Europe who are freezing right now. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about the allegations that America may have sabotaged that pipeline. They're not talking about none of that. They're busy talking about Kanye West. That's what I just want you to pay attention to that. Just pay attention to that. So anyway, it's becoming too expensive to be alive. Seniors cope with soaring housing and food costs. What is this? Bet Cohen of Townsend, Maryland, is worried about where she will live because her apartment complex is raising rent as they upgrade units. She pays $989 monthly for her one-bedroom apartment with a terrace, but a similar apartment that has been redone recently went on the market for $1,900. Betty Cohen. So they're saying they may raise grandma's rent by like another $1,000 a month. Economic insecurity is upending the lives of millions of older adults as soaring housing costs and inflation diminish the value of fixed incomes. Across the country, seniors who until recently successfully managed limited budgets are growing more anxious and distressed. Some lost work during COVID-19 pandemic. Others are encountering unaffordable rent increases and the prospect of losing their homes. Still, others are suffering significant sticker shock at grocery stores. Dozens of older adults struggling with these challenges, none poor by government standards, wrote to me after I featured the Elder Index, a measure of the cost of aging, in a recent column. That tool developed by researchers at the Gerontology Institute at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. This suggests that 54% of older women who live alone have incomes below what's needed to pay for essential expenses. For single men, the figure is 45. So okay. So let's just watch this because you know already what I'm going to say. Let's read that again. That tool developed by researchers at the Gerontology Institute at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, suggests that 54% of older women who, what does this say? Live alone have incomes below what's needed to pay for essential expenses. For single men, the figure is 45. Now, let's understand what's going on here. Let's understand this for a second, because you already know what I'm going to say. First thing I'm going to say is, why are you living alone? Where's your husband? That's the first thing I'm going to say. And I know there's a lot of feminists who might be listening to this. Oh, what are you saying? That we can't do it by ourselves? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying most of you can't do it by yourselves. I'm not talking about the billionaires and the millionaires like Oprah. I'm not talking about Sally Jesse Raphael and people who made a lot of money. No. I'm talking about regular average women. Why are you alone? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Why is it that no man said, hey, I got to have her, I got to marry her, I got to grow old with her, I got to be with her? Ask yourselves that question. See, 54% of older women who live alone have incomes below what's needed to pay for essential expenses. But for single men, the figure is 45. So single men have an easier time being single than the women do. Now, it's unfortunate that you can't get this 45% of men with these women But that's not going to happen because most of them can't deal with the noise and the annoyances. But my thing is, let's say these women don't have men. Why can't they move in with other women? Don't y'all remember that show, The Golden Girls? Don't y'all remember? You got all these old ass women in this house together. And apparently, I guess that, this was like Florida or some shit. I think it was Miami, Florida. Don't you remember the Golden Girls? Thank you for being a friend. Do. Travel down the road and back again. Do. Your heart is blue. You're a pal and a confidant. And if I threw a party, invited everyone I knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. See this right here? This looks like Sophia Petrillo. See, I remember all the names. There was Sophia Petrillo. There was Blanche Devereaux. There was our favorite Betty White. She was on there. Rose Nyland, I believe her name was Rose Nyland. And then, okay, so the Sophia Rose, Blanche Devereaux was the slut. Like, she was old and she was willing to screw everybody. And then there was Sophia. Okay, so the Sophia, Blanche, Rose, Dorothy. Yes, there was Dorothy. Dorothy, and she died a long time ago. She was the tall one, Dorothy. Yeah, you see, I remember my Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is new. You're a pal and a confidant. Yeah, so here's my question, Betty. Where's your man at? And if you don't have a man, why isn't it like you and a bunch of women like living in a house or something and paying the bills? So, Betty, you might want to consider being a golden... Wait a minute. There's no more story here. Oh, well, I guess that was a short story, huh? So anyway, that's it. These stories get like ridiculously short now. It's like these people suck at journalism. Like I would have kept going and I would have kept finding more stuff to put into my article, but these people throw together shit in like 5 minutes and they call it a day. And somehow they get paid for this. I don't know what it is. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. Betty right here, she may have to start an OnlyFans or she may have to go on like the X-Hamster Granny tab because I don't think she's going to be able to make it. Because, like, you always heard those old stories about the Depression where, like, supposedly, like, women were eating cat food. Like, I don't know if you ever heard those stories. Like, they said during the Depression, it was like you had women eating cat food because, like, they couldn't afford, like, regular food at the store, which makes me wonder why is cat food so much less expensive. But the bottom line, yeah, this is not looking good. It's like if I was Betty, I'd get me a group, like it would be like The View. Like we'd get like 5 or 6 women and we'd be a bunch of cackling hens and we'd live in like one house, like one decent sized house with a room for everybody. And we'd be the Golden Girls. That's what I'd do. That's exactly what I'd do. And nowadays, they could make a show out of that. Like they could have somebody with an iPhone or a camera system who goes around and does a reality show of how it is for old women in America to try to get along without having husbands and without having children taken care of them and without having like, friends to like, be roommates and stuff. And they could have a show better than the Golden Girls, but it would be better if they made it uncensored. So this way, like you see everything. Because see, the Golden Girls was like PG or PG-13 or something. It was PG-13 because of Blanche, because Blanche was a hoe. So I think that could work. Like if you made money on YouTube by showing these women in their natural habitat, like in the old folks' home, I think that could work. I think they could make a lot of money. They'd have this great show and everybody would watch it. Well, enough people would watch it because, overseas people love American TV, so they would watch it. And I think it could work. But I know what doesn't work. What doesn't work is single women being single, especially when winter is coming. So here's the story. 11 stocks can lead your portfolio's rebound after the S&P 500 earnings recession and a market bottom next year. Now, first of all, let's be upfront and clear. Nobody, absolutely nobody knows what the next year is going to look like as far as the stock market goes. We've seen the Dow lose about, 10,000 points in the past just 1 year. If you'd asked me back in, say, January, if I knew that Russia and Ukraine were going to have a war that lasted until right now, which is almost November, that it was going to last damn near, who knows? God knows, we don't even know when it's going to end. And that war and that conflict was going to cause massive oil increases in price, massive gas increase in price. Nobody could have known that. And that was just 1 year ago. And then if you really think about it, if you think back, 2-3 years ago, nobody could have possibly anticipated that COVID was going to happen. I remember all the dudes I had to argue with on the manosphere, these morons who don't know shit. And, oh, yeah, Trump's doing great. His economy's doing great. Everything's going great. They're making America great again. All of a sudden, Trump opened his mouth one time about China and said, yeah, we're going to put sanctions on them. We're going to put tariffs on them. Next thing you know, COVID came out of nowhere, i.e. China. All of a sudden, everything's closed down. The fucking world is shut down. The airlines are shut. Every goddamn thing. They're like, you think the world was coming to a fucking end. And all of that started the moment that Trump said something about putting sanctions on China. And as soon as he did that, the entire world shut down. Nobody could have imagined that was going to happen. Nobody could have imagined COVID was going to happen. Nobody could have imagined that we'd have moron government officials who would literally respond to it by shutting down the entire freaking world, all the ports, all the airlines, nobody could have imagined that. And you think about it, like what is this? This is 2022. Like COVID happened less than 3 years ago. The market did what it did. You had people sitting at home gambling, throwing money every which way, putting money in that shitty, stupid cryptocurrency, putting money into meme stocks, Peloton. Let me get this straight. Somebody's selling you an exercise bike with a fucking iPad attached to it, and you're going to pay damn near $1,000 for that. And on top of that, you're going to pay these people a monthly subscription? Yeah, that was doomed to fail. You had all these people sitting at home. Oh, we got nothing to do. Let's subscribe to Netflix, Disney, Paramount, and HBO and Showtime. Let's subscribe to everything. Let's just subscribe to everything. Those stocks went through the roof. But eventually COVID came to an end. Everybody basically pulled their money out, took whatever earnings they could get. All that shit plummeted. The point, again, is that nobody can anticipate 1 year from now. Nobody. Shit, you can't even anticipate 5 months from now. 5 months from now is unanticipatable. So when they have these stories, I always have to give it the side eye because I'm like, yo, listen, you have no idea what's going to happen over the next year. So I haven't read the story yet, but I'm going to read it with you. So it says, Ken Laudan of Buffalo Funds believes Wall Street analysis are wrong about 2023, but an earnings decline for the S&P 500 will set up rebound for stocks. He says the reference symbols are SPX, BuffX, BuffTX, NVIDIA, AMD, ASML. So before I even get started, even though we've seen a tremendous drop in some of the tech stocks, i.e. NVIDIA, Microsoft, AMD, whatnot, all of that has basically been related to either the war in, Russia versus Ukraine or China possibly taking over Taiwan. And I'd also like to point out, China themselves never openly came out and said that they were planning to take Taiwan. That's something that the American media invented. The Chinese government responded to that saying, if Taiwan declares independence or if America tries to bolster Taiwanese defense, that they might start making moves towards Taiwan. It was America who was basically suckering the Chinese government into a war that they neither wanted nor were ready for, nor had any interest in. They could have taken Taiwan over the last 20 years, but they weren't interested in doing it. They have no intention of doing it. It's only by America being there that they're suckering these people into having to bolster their defenses and talk about this in the first place. I'd also like to say the same thing about Russia. We keep talking about, oh yeah, Vladimir Putin's about to pull out nukes. It's like, wait a minute. Putin himself responded to Americans saying the nuclear option is on the table. You'd be hard-pressed to find any news media where Vladimir Putin or any of his generals literally come out and say, yeah, we're planning to use nukes, without them responding to America saying it. So why do I bring this up? The political stability right now is at, as far as I can remember, it's at the worst I can remember in my entire lifetime. This is literally like the equivalent of the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is exactly what that's the equivalent of. Unfortunately, nowadays, people are so divided and people are so stupid that they're not even really paying any attention to it because I guess they feel they don't really have to. Because you got to remember, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Khrushchev put missiles in Cuba, and you got these missiles 90 miles off the coast of America, right? So if you even fire those things, you got like less than 5 minutes to kiss your ass goodbye, right? Now, we're in a situation where we got these neocons in our government, and they are constantly pushing China and Russia. You think that having, there's a saying, it's like only a fool fights a war on two fronts. But it takes like the heir to the kingdom of fools to fight a war on several fronts. So these people are literally starting problems with the largest nuclear armed nations besides ourselves. And it's like, I think back to when Trump was in office, it was like we were trying to make peace with North Korea against the neocons' orders. And Russia and Trump were, for the most part, quiet. It was like they kept trying to accuse him of being a Putin stooge. But the thing about it is, here you got the guy trying to make peace with North Korea, and you got him trying to make peace with Vladimir Putin. But then you put Biden in office, and all of a sudden everything goes to shit. I remember that idiot Karen Hunter on Sirius XM Urban View when Trump first got into office, and she's saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to war." And I'm thinking to myself, we didn't have any new wars while Trump was in office, and meanwhile you put this senile old bastard Biden into office, and all of a sudden we're literally at the brink of fucking World War III. But that should just tell you a couple of things before I continue with the story. Never let a dumbass woman from liberal feminist background who has no children and who basically has nothing to prove her life, never let them run anything. That's the only thing I can warn you about. We're dealing with stupid fucking people out here. Really stupid, totally illogical, stupid people. But that's what you get when you allow liberal feminism, or you allow, and basically liberal feminism is behind the Biden presidency. I mean, who do you think of the people begging him for fucking $10,000 worth of loan forgiveness when they have over $50,000 worth of loans? It's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But I think I ranted enough. Let me get to the story. So Ken Lawton says a portfolio manager at Kornitzer Capital Management in Mission Can isn't buying it. He expects an earnings recession for the S&P 500, SPX plus 2.37. I guess that was yesterday or this week. It says that is a decline in profits of around 10%, but he also expects that decline to set up a bottom for the stock market. Lawton's predictions for the S&P 500 earnings recession and bottom. Says Lawton, who manages 83 million Buffalo large cap Buffex and co-manages Million Buffalo Discovery Fund, said during an interview, it is not unusual to see a 20% hit to earnings in a modest recession. Margins have peaked. The consensus among analysts polled by FactSet is for weighted aggregate earnings for the S&P 500 to total 238 actually. Let me skip down to the actual stocks that they suggested. Okay, he says he expects long-term duration technology growth stocks to lead the rally because they got hit first. Well, while I will admit that tech is down right now, I do feel good about long term with tech. Like, for instance, I have my own index: Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Google, oil, AMD, Amazon, Tesla, Mangoat, basically. He's suggesting Nvidia, and my only problem there is I have no idea about Nvidia and AMD, whether or not they'll see the previous highs they saw within the last 2 years, now that cryptocurrency is for the most part dead. Cryptocurrency, as you know, is basically dead simply because the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates, and now you don't have people able to borrow money anymore to gamble on cryptocurrency. Right now, people have been pressed to the point where they have no disposable income. They have no discretionary income. They have nothing left to gamble. They've pulled out of the stock market. They've pulled whatever they could out of the crypto market. And right now, the average person doesn't have anything to put in. It doesn't even matter about the crypto gurus, the few that there are that are still on YouTube, because you really don't even see and hear from these people anymore. Or lately, you really don't hear and see from them. But the thing about it is, no matter how hard they're trying to pump crypto right now, it's just not moving. Bitcoin has been stuck between $18,000 and $20,000 for a while now, bordering on 19,000, where I actually believe the bottom is. And Bitcoin itself accounts for more than 40% of the entire crypto market. So that means that the number one most popular cryptocurrency is basically in a rut. Now, you'll hear people talking about their mysterious gains, and you'll hear people talking about buying the dip, and you'll hear people talking about how they're making money off of this back and forth action. But the reality is they ain't got nothing to show, and you know they're lying. You know they're making it up. You know it's bullshit. But the thing about it is we're in a market right now where everybody's basically lying and overstating their earnings. That's just where you are. So what else does he say? He says ASML Holding, which provides equipment and systems used to fabricate computer chips. I already mentioned a while back, Micron is one of the stocks that you might definitely want to be in, because Micron is where America is basically gambling that we can build our own computer chips and we'll never, ever have to worry about China taking Taiwan. See, the problem with Taiwan is Taiwan accounts for over 90% of computer chip manufacturing. So America was worried, ultimately, that if China ever did invade Taiwan, that they'd be able to basically have a stranglehold on the entire global chips industry. So the CHIPS Act is basically a way to boost up American chip manufacturing, and Micron is just one of those companies. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I read a story that in upstate New York, they're planning to open a gigantic, they're saying that this place is going to be larger than like 4 football fields factory in order to start manufacturing chips. So, Micron is definitely something you might want to definitely get into. Me personally, I mean, I like Intel. Intel pays a dividend. Intel stock is down right now. I still love Microsoft. Microsoft, I know, is going to be around for a while. Apple, I know, is going to be around for a while. It's just unfortunate that Apple decides to release their products during September. Now, September is back to school. Therefore, you always are going to have a large number of people rushing to buy a new Mac, rushing to buy new iPhones, rushing to buy new iPads. Unfortunately, this recent release season, what we saw was, in my opinion, Apple had too many SKUs and they had too many iPhone 14 SKUs. If I was Apple, what I would have done was I would have had a regular iPhone 14 and an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and that would have been like it. They decided to push harder and have the Plus version, the Pro Max version, the regular version. Like, there was just too many SKUs. And most people said, listen, I'm either going to buy the best one or I'm just going to buy the regular one or I'm not going to buy one at all. The reality is, unless there's something very special you need from one of these phones, there's no reason in upgrading from your 13 as long as you have enough storage to justify, having a camera that shoots in the high file sizes that these cameras shoot in now. Because see, Apple didn't take the bait and go to 8K video, and they're still making excellent 4K 60 frame per second video. Nobody really has the technology to really make the use of 8K right now except the movie theaters. So the reality is, it's like, even though they make great equipment, they make great technology, people love it. Right now, you're in a recession, and most people don't want to drop $1,000 on a brand new phone. But what else they got? DHR, UNH, LIN, Adobe. Adobe, is similar to Microsoft when you're talking about Microsoft Office. So you know that the offices and the school systems are going to be using these things for PDFs. So yeah, those are good stocks to buy into. So basically what you're seeing is Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, UNH, DHR, LIN, and Adobe. Are some of the stock picks that this guy has. Then he has summarizing the declines. It says, to illustrate what a brutal year it has been for semiconductor stocks, the iShares Semiconductor ETF, which tracks the PHLX Semiconductor Index stocks of 30 U.S. listed chip makers and related equipment manufacturers, have dropped 44% this year. Then again, stocks had risen at 38% over the past 3 years and 81% for 5 years, underlining the importance of long-term thinking for stock investors. And yeah, I do agree with that. As you know from me, I'm the type of person, I'll put money in the market and I can wait for 4 or 5 years to watch it appreciate. In Tesla's case, it actually took 8 years. So my patience is unchallenged in that regards. Anything else? It says, here's a summary of changes in stock prices, again, excluding dividends, and forward price to forward earnings valuations during 2022 through October 14th for every stock mentioned in this article. The stocks are sorted alphabetically. So you have Apple, Adobe, Amazon, Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, ASML Holding, NVADR, Danaher Corp, Alphabet, Google, Lind, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and United Health Group. So these right here are the stocks that this guy is suggesting that you buy into to lead the recession recovery. Now, as you know, in my index, I already have Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple, and Amazon, and Google. So basically, I think that's about 80% of my personal index right there, not to mention oil stocks. One thing you're probably noticing lately is that oil and gas prices have been slowly trickling up. I've continued to say the exact same thing. The real economy is going to show its face directly after the elections. I say officially the recession begins on November 9th, since Election Day is November 8th. Now, right now, the Dow is 31,000. So the Dow is actually up about 2,000 points over the last week, back to 31. But it's still down. It's still down considerably from where it was. I mean, it was at, 30? It was at 37? Okay, it was at 36,398. I thought we were going to Dow 40,000. But as you can see, over the last year, we had a tremendous dip. Mostly this could be blamed on Russia v. Ukraine, or it could be blamed on the hostilities against China, or it could possibly be blamed on the inflation that suddenly rose its head. The The reality is the inflation was caused mostly by printing all those goddamn welfare checks during the COVID time when we were all stuck at home for the most part. However, what they did was they focused on blaming it all on Russia. And they wanted to blame it all on Russia because the last thing they want you doing is to think that the Federal Reserve or the government doesn't know what they're doing, which obviously they don't. And now they're right back at it with this whole student loan forgiveness bullshit where they're trying to print another $10,000 per borrower in order to help cover $10,000 out of $40,000 or $50,000 worth of the debt that they have. And I think the saddest thing about that is when I've heard people talk about this loan forgiveness thing, I always hear them say the same thing. They're like, oh, yes, well, now that they're getting some forgiveness, they'll be able to focus on buying a car or buying a house. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? First of all, $10,000 out of what they owe is not going to change their ability to buy a house or a car. Right now, cars are marked up considerably. The market adjustment on cars in many cases is between $5,000 and $10,000 depending on the model, especially light trucks. Light trucks, and I'm not even talking about race cars and Hellcats and shit like that. I'm not talking about Corvettes and Nissan, Supras and all that bullshit. I'm saying the average car right now has a markup. And if you're talking about a luxury car, the markups are even higher. But then you factor in the cost of the loans. 5.8% at a minimum, 7% depending upon where you are if you're going shopping for luxury. So knocking out $10,000 ain't changing shit. And furthermore, let's look at the housing market. The houses are marked up considerably. They're heavily inflated. And on top of that, getting a mortgage right now at a 6 or 7%, you're literally paying twice what you'd be paying per month if those rates were back 2.9 like they were back in January or February. So the reality is, it's like, yeah, listen, just because you knock out a little bit of loan, using the forgiveness, that doesn't mean that these people are going to be able to buy anything. In fact, if they couldn't buy those loans themselves and pay those loans off, I have to wonder, would they even be credit worthy enough to buy a house or a car? Because keep in mind, one of the factors affecting whether or not you can buy a house or a car is how good your credit is. But the Biden administration stepped into office talking about wanting to get rid of credit scores, which I've mentioned in videos before. See, the sad thing is, unless you piece all of this together, and unless you can refer back to this, and you know what? That's another thing that bothers me. YouTube used to make it so that you could link videos to newer videos. Why did they ever take that feature away? Because, see, it's one thing for me to say, yeah, I made a video about this a long time ago. But when we used to have the card system and we used to have the ability to link a video to another video, like a new video, it used to make it very easy for you to simply just touch a fucking button and go from one video to the next video just to see what things were like back then. Now you're stuck with this fucking algorithm, which doesn't favor people who they don't want to favor. And it allows the fake gurus and it allows the fakeness of YouTube to rear its ugly head. In the good old days, you could literally just say, okay, yeah, I made videos about a certain thing a long time ago, and all you got to do is just touch here. And I was able to program in exactly where I wanted you to touch. And then all of a sudden they got rid of all of that shit. Incredible, right? It's almost like they're trying to hide something. So, in any event, most of these stocks, especially these ones that are in my index, ended in the green on Friday. And I think, for the most part, the market has priced in the conflict that's going on overseas. Now, we have other situations that keep popping up. The British basically lost Liz Truss ultimately because she got in there, she started cutting taxes for whatever reason, and didn't seem to realize that you can't cut taxes when you're in this level of a recession because you actually need that to help you pay for all your unfunded liabilities, especially your worker pensions. So her ass didn't last very long, and it's very possible Boris Johnson may end up right back where he was. So we just don't know yet. So I can't even make that speculation. But they're talking about it, so it's a very good possibility it could happen. All these technology companies, I still have faith in them. And I know that they look down right now, but I still have faith that they're coming back, even if it takes a year. Because you got to remember, we've got Christmas coming up. So that means a lot of tech spending, a lot of technology will be up. We have a lot of people who right now can't buy these cars and they can't buy houses and they can't buy anything related simply because they don't have the money and the insurance and the interest rates are too high. However, over time that will probably change. See, it's a hell of a lot easier to buy a Tesla when the interest rate's only 3% than it is to buy a Tesla when the interest rate's 6%. It's a hell of a lot easier, right? Intel is doing its thing. AMD's doing its thing. And it's funny because I remember when AMD was $50. I was telling everybody to buy AMD right around the time it was $50. It shot all the way up past 100. It went to $160. And then it went right back down with this Russia v. Ukraine, China v. Taiwan nonsense. Bitcoin, all these stupid shit, cryptocurrencies, all of these look like they're doing well in the green. But when you really look closely at them, you can see how much money they've lost. Bitcoin is still around 19,000, but they told me it was going to 100,000. They told me it was going to the moon. Ethereum, people who I know who bought Ethereum, bought whole Ethereum, they've literally lost 2/3 of their money. It's incredible. The sad thing about it, I've warned people about this shit. I've told people at every fucking step, keep your money out of it. At every single step, I told them to stay away from it. I gave them better options. I gave them better things to invest in. But nope, they kept chasing it. Well, guess what? The people who I know who've literally lost more than 60% of your value, including entire nations like El Salvador, well, you gambled and you lost. Too bad for you. So, other things to talk about. Meta, I hate Zuckerberg. I'm glad to see Meta crush. It's sad because every time when I think back to all of those 30-day suspensions that I got on Facebook, let me tell you something. If they take every dime out of Zuckerberg's pocket, I could give a fuck. In fact, I really hope they do. Roku. Now, the interesting thing about Roku is that they make these integrated smart television systems. And Roku, in my opinion, is a good company. Now, their stock was way up, and now it's way down. Like, their stock reached highs of, what was this, $323, or probably more. The 52-week high was $333. And Roku is it's a good company. It makes a good product. The only thing is, it's way down, and they have some things coming that says they start selling smart home products. So they're trying to link shit with their television software and their cell phone software. But I actually like Roku. In fact, I just bought one of my uncle's new Roku remotes because, most of these parents are too negligent to stop babies from destroying the Roku remotes or taking them out of their room and then losing them. But, it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Oil is making its comeback. Some people keep asking me, should I invest in oil stocks? You're not going to get in where I got in. You're not going to get in when I got in during that low of 2020, right during March 2020 when oil had gone negative. You're not going to be able to buy in there. So it's hard for me to recommend it. It's just that I could recommend the gas stocks like Texaco, Sunoco, Exxon, BP. I could recommend those. But, again, you're not going to get it where I got it. You're not going to get it at the low. So I don't want to say don't do it. It's just that I have to say that you're just not going to get what I got out of it. Because, see, when I got into it, back when everybody was busy buying Dodge coins and People were busy buying Ethereums and people were busy buying Litecoins and all that shit. I said, no, fuck that. I'm going to put my money in oil stocks. I heard oil went negative. I heard a barrel of oil is less than $1. I'm buying thousands of barrels of oil. But that's just how I think. Everybody else say, oh yeah, I'm getting me a Bitcoin Lamborghini. I'm going to the moon. Not me. I said, no. Oil is a real thing in this real world that people really need to heat their homes and drive their cars. Let me buy that instead. I guess that's just the difference between us. What else? The automotive companies that I have, I'm just holding them where they are. GM, I think GM is worth buying if you have the money. I mean, GM has a 1% yield per share. Ford has, I think they're still at no, Ford's yield is 4.92. When I bought my Ford shares, they didn't even have a dividend, and then Ford implemented a 2% per share dividend, and now it's up to 4.92. That's very nice to see. Stellantis has a 8.56% dividend. Hell yeah. So my automotive, and I was telling you this back around the same time that I bought oil, like right around March 2020. But talking about it doesn't really mean anything now because that was almost 2 years ago. But I bought a lot of Ford. I bought a lot of Stellantis. I bought GM. I bought Rivian, Lucid. Tesla and whatnot. So these things are paying dividends. So you got Ford, GM, and Stellantis, which is Chrysler, paying dividends now. Now that really looks good. 8.56% dividend. Very, very nice. I like that. I like that a lot. I didn't even know that it had gone up this high. I really do like that. As far as the electric car companies like Rivian and Lucid, you're going to have to wait a while before you can really see the come up on those. But the thing about it is, it's funny. I've seen Lucids and I've seen Rivian trucks in public. The chip shortage is still keeping them down. Once that chip shortage is dealt with, all of these electric car companies are going to fly. And the reason why is because gas prices having gone up have forced a lot of people to rethink purchasing an electric car. Now when I go out, I'm seeing Teslas everywhere. I'm seeing Model Ys. I'm seeing Model 3s everywhere. In fact, there's a lot of people who are downsizing from the Model S and Model X into Model 3s and Model Ys simply because the payments are so much less. You got to remember, a lot of these people who lease these cars, they leased these cars when interest rates were dirt cheap. But now when they take these cars back, like think about people who leased in 2019 or 2020. When those people leased those cars, the interest rates were really, really low. But now that they're taking those cars back, now they're facing releasing at a much higher interest rate. So a lot of these people are downsizing to cars that are less expensive. I'm seeing more brand new Kias. I'm seeing more brand new Hyundais. I'm seeing more brand new Genesis products. People who I never expected to see driving a Genesis G70, I'm seeing driving Genesis G70s. I don't see a whole lot of Genesis GV60s, but I do see a lot of G70s and a lot of G80s. I see a lot of those on the road. Who else? Alibaba's probably going to get their asses delisted. See, let me tell you something. This right here, and see, people can't understand my political mindset. But I always keep maintaining the second that Trump started shit with China, that was the beginning of the end for his presidency. Now, whether or not he makes it back in, whether or not he and Boris Johnson make it back in, I don't know if that'll happen. Everybody claim, he's running in 2024. Well, I don't know that. I mean, right now, I think the last thing I read on Friday was that they had subpoenaed him for the January 6th committee. And I also read that Bannon had gotten like 4 months in prison or something, because of contempt of Congress. So the reality is, it's like he started this shit with China with this Foreign Stock Accountability Act. And it was like everything just collapsed from that point. Like Neo, Xpeng, Lee, all of these Chinese stocks, specifically Alibaba was one of them. Basically, what they said was in that act that if you can't be fully disclosing everything about your company, that you risk basically being thrown off the list of tradable stocks in America. From that point on, it was like everything China related just fucking collapsed. It was like everything was doing great, but then all of a sudden everything just collapsed. And they're saying, I've been hearing these reports and everything about China doing these COVID lockdowns. Let me tell you something, I don't believe that shit. I've seen some videos about people being locked in, what is it called? Like little holding cells and shit that they set up. There is no way that their COVID situation is still that bad. There's no way. Now, it could be, but I really don't think so. I really, really, really don't think so. There's something's wrong here. I don't believe what the news is telling me. I just don't. But I'll never be able to prove it, so it's no point in talking about it. So, keeping on going, for the most part, the only other major industry is the airline industry and the defense industry. So Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and them, they're doing great. But right now, you are still able to get these airlines at major discounts, like JetBlue. JetBlue right now is lower than it was in 2020 when it was like a little less than $10. Delta's $32. In fact, what is this? Delta is $32 right now. In 2020, it had dropped to $25. So, if you ever wanted to own these airlines, but the reality is, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, there's no profit in the airlines for any time soon. There's just no profit. There's not enough people flying. There's still some issues with these COVID lockdowns abroad. But the reality is there's not enough people flying, not enough people traveling. Most of these people ain't got the money to do it like that. And that's just the reality. So it's like if you want to buy airlines, if you want to get into the airlines, this is the time. It's just that I don't see any profit from it for a while. I just don't see it. So that's just what it is. You can own them, but that's about it. You can own shares in them, but that's about it. So SM and Silica, man, Silica and SM, like those guys, I wish that as soon, and I guess that's a lesson for me. I wish I had sold SM and Silica. I wish I had sold as soon as Russia started their shit, because they shot right up. Like you see SM, I bought SM at like $1.90 a share, and I bought Silica about $1.80 a share. These things shot up to $55 per share, and I have a lot of shares in these companies, and I sold off about $10,000 worth of them each. And because ultimately I was selling off a lot of these different oil companies because I'm building up the cash reserves so that when my Cadillac Lyric gets here, I could just buy it outright. I am definitely probably going to trade my Jeep SRT, because the thing about it is that car is approaching 100,000 miles. Now, I have gotten offers for it. It's just that, if I get an offer, I'm going to be upfront with the person. I'm going to tell them exactly what the issues I think that they need to address are. Like, for instance, as far as I'm concerned, they need brand new wheels, because I don't like the age of my wheels. I think over time they've got, warped and bent and everything. That just happens. It's metal. And so I'm telling them, listen, you need brand new wheels. And I'd also recommend they put a competition muffler on, like a Borla or a Corsa. But they're going to do that anyway, so I don't really have to say anything. They're going to do it anyway. So it's like, but those are my only two real recommendations. Other than that, the truck is in great condition to sell. So if Cadillac is hitting me with the numbers I want, like if I'm trading it in at like $30,000 and $35,000, I'm willing to take between 30 and 35. I don't need to be picky, but I'd hope to get 35, but we'll see what happens. It looks like it's going to be like 2 or 3 months before the fucking Cadillac Lyric is finally ready for delivery. They don't even start building my car until November 11th. So it really, really annoys me. Today is October 22nd. I still got a long time to wait until they even start building it. I don't know how they handle builds. I don't know if they email me a VIN number or what. I really don't know, because I know Dodge does that where they email you a VIN number, and I think you can follow the build of a Challenger or a Charger or something like that. But shit. So we're a little while out, basically. We're a little while out. But yeah, the oil companies, the gas companies, even the banks. The banks are doing their thing. I always recommend people buy banks and oil. That's what I used to say, banks and oil, banks and oil. Gasoline companies are doing their thing. So that's basically the market right there. It's like you can't go wrong with this stuff. These are the real investments, not like that fucking cryptocurrency shit. These are real investments. So. But that's basically it. That's all I really had to report on. And for the most part, again, technology, banks, gas, oil companies. That's if you see that these things are heavily discounted right now because everybody's pulled their money out, this is the time to buy in. And you'll have to sit on it, wait a year, wait 2 years, maybe even 3. Once this Russia-Ukraine situation is over, once this Taiwan-China situation is completely over, that's when you're going to make your money. And it may take a year, it may take 2 years, because right now I just don't know how long it's going to take, but that's the reality. So have at it.